Hello, everybody, and this is Renault, and I'm going to go ahead and do my very first news story, and the news story is about Zoe Quinn and the concept of, and more specifically about the concept of failing upwards. And so here we see that Marvel is going to be hiring Zoe Quinn to write the Hellcat story, which is fine in and of itself, normally as a standalone. But the problem is, this is about a trend where people who are otherwise people who are not successful, people who have a not just not successful, but a long history of not being successful, continuously receive opportunities. And that's pretty much textbook example of someone like Zoe Quinn. Now, a lot of people don't realize that Zoe Quinn is an alias for Chelsea Van Valkenburg, and I'm not quite sure if she's attached to wealthy politicians or wealthy financiers, but she's connected to people with a whole lot of clout. But the point is that clout just gives her kind of connections or whatever to just get opportunities that people would normally not have access to. And regardless of whether though she's successful or not, and she's so far to date never been successful at anything, she just keeps getting opportunities just because of who she is. And so when we see that Zoe Quinn has a failed Kickstarter, and that's something I actually forgot to prepare for, but it's not particularly relevant. She's, someone who's not ever succeeded at anything she's ever done. She raised $90,000 on a Kickstarter for a video game. She never produced it. She never even came close to produced it. In fact, she announced the failure of that Kickstarter ultimately while vacationing in Japan at an expensive resort via Twitter. And so prior to this, she's never actually done anything successful, and you can see that when she was previously working at DC Comics and she was doing the vertical line for oh gosh, I'm having a brain fart. This is actually pretty hard. Goddess Mode. She did a Goddess Mode, and that was a terrible series. It completely failed. It's one of the reasons why Vertical ultimately shut down and dragged down DC Comics with it. But again, as the concept of failing upwards is concerned, she's just being given another opportunity to write for Marvel, despite this long history of just being a failure at everything she does. And the reason why this is, I think personally, is a very dangerous situation, is because, it's a concept of kicked upstairs, where I have a TV tropes here, and the concept is actually a thing that goes back for a very long time, where people who are not good at anything, but because of who they are, they keep getting opportunities. And this is also known as something called the Peter Principle, and I'm going to read it here in this paragraph. It's called moving an incompetent employee to one of these jobs of precursive sublimation, in which the incompetent employee is kicked sideways, but instead of up. Either way, the personnel in question gets shuffled over into a new position of theoretically equal status, but which doesn't have nearly as much effect on the situation. Actually, I need to read a different section. Sorry about that. I'm just going to read this from the start. Sorry. Sometimes someone working for an organization cannot be eliminated, but isn't actually wanted in his or their role. Perhaps he's far too eager but incompetent, or is good but has some crazy ideas, or just annoys everyone. Rather than being eliminated normally, they can get promoted beyond the point where they get to do anything damaging, or given a role that serves no useful functions, or they can be given a vitally important task that really isn't worth the effort. It may even be a snipe hunt. Alternatively, the role assigned may be significant, but the main advantage of putting the character there is that it would be a long way from anyone else to care about. This can often be used as an excuse of why an authority figure of an obscure topic is so awful at his job. He got kicked upstairs into the position. This is the most benign fate of a pointy-haired boss. He goes from incompetently micromanaging your every task to incompetently giving vague company mission statements. So I'm going to stop there. So again, this is something that continuously happens to Zoe Quinn. But again, the reason why I say that something like this is actually kind of dangerous is because it looks like they're doing things. And in the grand scheme of things, if somebody is getting kicked upstairs or getting task after task after task, and despite them being incompetent at it or failing at it, the only thing that some people look at is that they've been doing things, even if it's been incompetently done. And so the reason why I'm bringing that up is because this is actually how we wound up with arguably the worst president we've ever had in American history, and that's James Buchanan. Actually, I think the TV trope section will be better for Wikipedia just because of the jargon that's going to be involved. So, Buchanan. And the reason why I bring this up is because I'm not really a devout studier of history, but one of the things I am familiar with when I was doing history in high school is that he was a terrible president, and the reason why he became president is because it constantly looked like he was doing things. Even if the things he was doing was utterly incompetent, he never succeeded at anything in his life, but the only thing he had going for him was that it looked like he was doing things. And so that's the situation we have with Zoe Quinn. It looks like she's doing things, when in reality she's screwing things up and has never succeeded at anything, as exemplified by, her failure to complete a video game where she was the project manager. It just utterly failed, and she actually was supposed to be paying some transgender creators. She promised them clout and connections and everything else, but once that project failed, she actually just took the money and ran. But she also blocked those 4 transgender employees. Now, here we have the section on James Buchanan. And here's what Andrew Jackson said about James Buchanan. "It is as far as I could send him out of my sight, and where he could do the least harm. I would have sent him to the North Pole if we had kept a minister there." And it's important to note here, no human being had ever been there at the time. In modern terms, it was roughly equivalent is I would have sent him to Mars. So again, Zoe Quinn is, if she keeps this up, she's going to be turning into a type of James Buchanan type of person. Someone who just incompetently fails at everything. But because of that prominence, she fails upward. And the glorification of failing upwards is something I've noticed increasingly in modern day society, where Cecile Castellucci is doing a DC comic for the Female Furies, and the Female Furies is also just a terrible comic. But again, Cecile Castellucci has a long history of also failing, but they're held up as some sort of epitome despite this lack of success. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because James Buchanan was an incompetent person who ultimately oversaw, and his ineptitude somewhat caused, or at least heavily contributed to the Civil War. And now you might see that I also have Hillary Clinton here. And the reason why I'm bringing up Hillary Clinton is because she is actually a person who spent most of her political career failing upwards. And that's kind of how I worry some, because Zoe Quinn is also someone who seems to just be failing upwards. So Hillary Clinton, she made a large number of political appointments, riding the coattails of Bill Clinton. And despite being she's not a particularly competent person, she actually failed the D.C. bar. And so she had to hook up with Bill Clinton in Arkansas because she didn't have what it takes to actually work as a D.C. attorney to clout chase. Anyway, the point being is that, like Zoe Quinn, Hillary Clinton actually spent a long time receiving numerous appointments appointments. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is because she wasn't particularly elected by the people per se. She was constantly, just because of who she was, receiving appointments to this, appointments to that. Walmart. Actually, that thing with Walmart was a huge deal. And just these appointments are very much similar to Zoe Quinn. She just gets appointments after appointment, despite constant failure, no particular display of competence. And the higher up they go, the more questionable that it becomes. Where you have to ask, what the hell is this person doing? They're not good at anything. They've never done anything. And eventually, as most of you know, Hillary Clinton, when she was finally put in charge and finally forced to, on the national stage. And by the way, yes, she won the election to New York Senate, but that's like, dunking on a 2-year-old. I don't want to say it doesn't count because technically it does, but let's face it, it didn't count. So when she was in charge, as you all know, she got her backside handed to her by Barack Obama. And in a hilarious fashion, because she had the wind at her sails, she had everything going for her. Just like Zoe Quinn, and then she got her butt handed to her by someone who actually had to earn their way in. But I know the reason why I'm bringing this up is because Zoe Quinn is, I can see her going into politics just because of her constantly kicked upstairs status, where it looks like she did this and she looks like she did that. And hopefully somebody recognizes her for the incompetent nobody that well, I don't want to say nobody because I am most certainly a nobody, but she is certainly incompetent. And I hope that she just gets recognized for the incompetent person that she is, because she's never done anything. She just has a long, long track record of being a complete and utter failure. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and end the video just pointing out the similarity I see from lots of individuals. Cecile Castellucci, who did Female Furies for DC Comics. Zoe Quinn, another person who was not good at anything and constantly fails. Hillary Clinton, who actually showed that she was an incompetent person who got to where she was because of who she was, not necessarily what she was capable of. And so, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and end it now. I just wanted to bring that up because, I saw this Bounding in the Comics article, and I just wanted to make sure I mentioned it. It also gave me a chance to just comment. Oh, and another thing I wanted to mention is that she's also doing a IDW comic for the Addams Family. But that's not nearly as important because IDW is a trash fire for various reasons, and this series isn't going to matter. It's the Marvel thing is the one that draws eyebrows. Anyway, thank you so much, and I hope you all have a good day. Hit that like button, by the way. That helps my videos. Actually, I don't have the ability to leave comments, but hit that like button, and thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.